Hey, we're back. We're back. We're back. Yours truly back in the space, back in the place. Once again, Mickey Smith Jr. And we've been talking about the journey that is the school year. And I've been doing a breakdown of the behaviors and the tendencies that our students oftentimes show. Why? Because so much of what we do in the classroom has little to do with what we teach in the classroom. And it has everything with us being proper behavior detectives. So today, we talked about the pilot. We talked about on the last video. I want to give a breakdown of the flight attendant. Okay. And you got to watch all these to understand any of these. Okay. So the flight attendant, when we talk about that flight attendant, that's that individual that's probably a little bit more social, that they're the life of the party. Look, I'll just go ahead and say the word inspiring. I'm not saying they're like a motivational speaker, but what I am saying is that they light up a room oftentimes because they bring a certain energy, good or bad. And look, sometimes depending on how your teaching style is, that student may be a blessing or a curse, because a lot of times that student can really, really be like lighter fluid on a situation. Why? Because they have a level of influence that they bring to the classroom, right? They're very interactive, which again, depending on what your classroom style is and what your subject that you're teaching, that influence and that interaction can sometimes be a detriment, right? These students, in addition to being social and maybe a little chatty, look, I'm using the nice words, they can also be, dare I say, a little spotty, a little squirrel, right? A little aloof, maybe, or imaginative, maybe is a better word, right? Sometimes we got short attention span because we're bouncing from one thing to the other. They all over the place. They just, right? Excitable even. I need you to understand, as I said before, that these behaviors, these tendencies, these outward showings of who they are really have nothing to do with us. Okay. At the end of the day, they were going to be who they were going to be, regardless if they're in your class or not. So do me a favor. Don't take it personal, but make it personal. What do I mean by make it personal? Be a behavior detective. Look at them again and ask yourself, what are these behaviors really a cry for? What are they a calling card for? I believe that when you see students that are operating with this level of interaction and influence and imagination, that a lot of times it's a call for affirmation. They want to be affirmed at the end of the day. And sometimes students that need love the most show it in the most interesting ways. Like you may be like, sit down and shut up, and they're like, hey teacher, right? Because they want that affirmation. They want to be accepted by not just you, but by their peers. So in addition to being accepted from your standpoint and having that affirmation, they also want that popularity from the peers. They want recognition. They want to know that they're seen. So it's putting that kid in a situation where they can't be seen and they can't thrive is actually their kryptonite. And at the end of the day, there are some teachers that would be like, oh, that's exactly what I need, some kryptonite. But we don't want to reduce our students. We want to empower them. I don't want you to change your students. I want you to look for ways to put them in the right position so that they are purposeful and powerful. So we talk about this flight attendant. As I said before, I'm going to speak it in teacher talk. All that flowery stuff I just said, let's just be honest. Teachers, when you got that student that's operating in that way, they may your descriptions for them in the teacher conference may be, parent, your child is disorganized. Your child seems to be a little emotional. They talk a little bit too much. Matter of fact, they talk a bit too much. I'm gonna just be honest with you. They out here just talking too much, right? Sometimes they may even come off a little insecure, and that may cause some problems in the class. And look, I'm gonna be honest with you. Y'all need to do something at home with this child. Unstructured. That's what I'm talking about. We've had those conferences where we said stuff like that, and they're just a little bit too much. They can be a little bit too much. Look, if I had to say teacher talk, I may say they're a little overly expedient, right? But they just out here doing too much too fast, right? And I'm saying that because when we go into the conferences, it's so easy for us to identify the negative behavior or the limitations or the deficiencies, whatever you want to call them. But I need you to understand that those are just superpowers in disguise. They're really a cry for a certain need. They have a high need to verbalize ideas. You can't shut them up. You can't stop them. You can only hope to contain them. So if I know that they have a high need to verbalize ideas, then my role as a teacher is to give them a space to verbalize. Maybe not for the entire class period, but put some boundaries there. Put some guidelines, put some procedures, put some systems in place that allow them to be all that they can be. That's what we used to say back in the day, be all you can be in the Army. Put them in a situation where they can be everything that they can be under a certain constraint. Why? Because when they can talk and they can be interactive and they can be influential, that's a high motivator for them. A high motivator for them is positive communication. So if you take that away, it's like you kill their spirit. And I'm not saying that there's not times where they have to sit down and shut up and, maybe there's some punitive actions that a teacher takes, but we don't want that to be the end all be all, and we don't want it to be the commonplace. I believe that if you want them to elevate, we have to give them that space to be who they are. You got to let a flight attendant be a flight attendant, y'all. Why? Because at the end of the day, we don't want to give them rejection or lack of rapport. We don't want to do that, because if you give them that, that's when you're going to start getting the negative pushback on their part. That's when they're going to push back. That's when you're going to be like, oh my God, why is this student responding this way? Because that's the opposite of what fuels them and thrives them. When they get stressed, they have what I call verbiosity. They just start talking a whole lot and they start doing fast action. And a lot of times as teachers, we want them to calm down, but we have to ask, has the situation we put them in a position to be their most natural and their most calm? At the end of the day, their fear is that social rejection. So we want to make sure we put them in positions to where we see their behavior and we start to promote it in ways that promotes them. For example, what's their value on this flight? Well, on the pilot, we said is getting results. That's what we want from our pilot. We want him to take the plane off, and we want he or she to land the plane. We want the results, getting from point A to point Z. What's their value to the team? Promoting the idea. See, my thing was when I found a flight attendant, and when I find a flight attendant in my class, I put them in a position of spreading the propaganda of the class. If I have a lesson, then I put it in the hands of the flight attendant, because I know they're going to get it out there and they're going to get everybody excited about it. And they're going to keep the fuel. They're going to keep it ignited in the class. I want you to think about what I just said. My job is not to quench their superpower, but my job is to fuel it and feed it, but to put it in a position, in a role to where it also adds value to the class as I add value to them. Why? Because at the end of the day, they appreciate having the choices. I need us to change how we do it so we can see the change in them. Yeah, I said it with the pilots. If you want them to buy in, okay, if you got to get that selling point, then you tell them it's new and unique. They take pride in that because they're like, oh, I'm doing something new and unique. Well, with the flight attendants, you got to tell them it's flashy and showy. Maybe you stick a hashtag name on it, right? I did something about a week ago where we literally all we did was review. We just literally just reviewed concepts that we've been covering, but I did it in a bracket form and we called it March Music Madness. We literally had fireworks in the band hall. I got some low key pyrotechnics and they had the sparks, the cold fires, what they called it. You'd have to go back, check it out on my website, check it out on the social media. And these kids went bananas. And some of the most squirrel, some of the most imaginative, maybe off-task students were totally locked in. Why? Because it was flashy. It was showy. I'm telling you. I'm telling you guys, don't try to stop their communication, because at the end of the day, their communication is what they bring to the situation. At the end of the day, they're creative problem solvers. Notice why I use the word creative. If we try to give them the situation we've always given them in the box, then they won't embrace it. But if we give them an opportunity to create the box, that's when you're going to have their best interests at heart, and you're going to have their attention. Positive relationships are key to them. They will literally get everybody else involved with this thing if they can see the value of it. They're big on participation, not just lecture. So try to create opportunities for them to be participatory in your class and you'll win. But at the end of the day, it's really about communication. If their mantra was something, it's all about the people. That's why I call them the flight attendants. The flight attendants are all about the people. They're part of the flight, but we would never put a flight attendant in a cockpit to fly a plane. So why do we try to take students that are naturally flight attendants and put them in roles and positions? It's like the old adage says, if I test a fish on its ability to climb a tree, then it'll always fail. I'm not telling you that these students can't be challenged. I'm not telling you not to have rigor in your classroom. I'm just saying, look at their behavior so they can find the reward to go with the rigor. I hope this helps, guys. Look. So we talked about the flight attendant. I want you to just take a moment and just kind of think, who are your flight attendants in your class? Who are those students that are very influential, that are very inquisitive, that are very imaginative, that are very talkative, right? Very social, very interactive, I guess is a better word for it. And ask yourself, who are those students? And I want you to see their actions not as anything that is prohibiting, but something that can be influencing. Challenge you today. Look again for the first time and you'll see the sound. We'll be back, guys. More on the website, MickeySmithJr.com.